Think about youth sports for a second. What really makes it fair? Or sometimes what maybe tilts the field a bit unfairly. We've all seen it, right? A young athlete just like bursting with potential, but they aren't getting quite the same shot as their peers, especially those kids born later in the selection year. It's a real challenge, kind of subtle sometimes. But what if there was a simple, effective way to help level things out? Well, today we're diving deep into a fascinating new study. It looks at exactly that, how targeted training can make a really significant difference for young athletes facing what's known as the relative age effect. This deep dive is based on an article called Leveling the Playing Field in Youth Basketball: How Compensatory Training with Small-Sided Games Enhances Physical Fitness and Reduces Relative Age Effect Bias in Match Selection. Hot off the press, really. Published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, 2025, Volume 24. The authors are Mingbang Li, Yang Zeng, LiXin Wei, and Junlin Li. Just for the record, it was received April 1st, 2025, accepted May 14th, and published online June 1st, 2025. So our mission today, to pull out the key stuff from this research, kind of give you a shortcut to understanding how we might make youth sports more equitable. There are some surprising facts and really practical insights here.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is how this study tackles a bias that's, well, it's persistent, often underestimated in sports development. It doesn't just point out the problem. It actually offers a tangible pathway, like something coaches can do, to move towards a more inclusive approach.
Absolutely. And, to really get why this solution is so important, we first need to properly understand the problem itself, the relative age effect, or RAE. So imagine a competitive youth basketball league. Let's say all the players are grouped by age, maybe 12 to 14 years old. The RAE basically means that players born earlier in that selection year, maybe January, February, they might be almost a full year older than teammates born later, like November, December. And because they're older, even just by months, they often have a natural physical advantage. Bigger, stronger, maybe a bit more coordinated.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that maturity advantage, especially during adolescence when kids grow so fast, it can just snowball. It often leads to more playing time, more chances in actual matches, and naturally potentially faster skill development for those early-born players. This creates a sort of systemic bias. Talented later-born players can get overlooked, which raises real concerns about fair selection in youth development. Researchers have pointed this out for years. It's a big deal in sports like basketball, definitely, where being physically mature early on can give you a pretty substantial competitive edge.
Right. So just the month you happen to be born in can inadvertently create this hidden hurdle for a young athlete. It can slow down their progress, the recognition. And it's not about their effort or innate talent. It's literally just the calendar. Sounds like a tough spot for those later born kids. But okay, this study, it offers a really compelling solution you mentioned. Let's get into that. The researchers looked at this strategy called compensatory training. What exactly is that?
Think of it like this. It's a deliberate training approach. It's designed specifically to make up for a lack of actual game time. So it gives players alternative physical and tactical challenges, things that really mimic the intensity and demands of a real game. Quality reps, basically.
Even if they aren't getting those reps in formal matches. Okay.
Precisely. And this study specifically aimed to see if this kind of training could help those later-born youth players,
Yeah.
the ones who usually get less match play. Could it, lessen the negative developmental effects of that limited exposure? And it's pretty groundbreaking because, as far as the authors knew, no previous research had specifically looked at compensatory training to offset RAE disadvantages in, later-born youth basketball players. They were really exploring new ground.
Interesting. So how did they test it? What did this study actually look like?
Well, they used what's called a prospective cohort design. Basically, they followed male youth basketball players, age 12 to 14, from 3 local clubs over a 6-month period.
Okay, 6 months. And they focused on the later born players.
That's right. Kids born in the 3rd or 4th quarter of the year. And they divided these players into 3 distinct groups.
Group 1.
That was the LBHPT group, stands for later born, high playtime. There were 14 players here. And like the name says, they got a lot of match play, averaged almost 980 minutes over the 6 months.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of court time. Group 2.
Group 2 was LBLPT comp. That's later born, low play time. But, and this is key, they did get the special compensatory training. There were 12 players here. They got much less match play, around 480 minutes on average.
Right. Less game time, but the extra training.
Yeah.
And the third group.
The third group was LBLP Trek, later born, low play time, regular training. 10 players. They also got less match play, about 520 minutes, similar to the comp group, but they didn't get the extra compensatory sessions, just their normal club training.
Got it. So that's the control group for the compensatory training element,
Yeah.
essentially.
Exactly. And the compensatory training itself, it wasn't hugely time-consuming, just 2 extra 15-minute sessions per week. They did these right after the regular team training. And the focus was on small-sided games like 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. They often use smaller baskets and courts, too, probably to increase the intensity and the number of touches each player got.
So like intense, focused bursts of game-like activity.
You got it.
Yeah.
For instance, one session might be 3-on-3 on a smaller court, playing 3 5-minute bouts. The other might be 2-on-2, maybe 5 3-minute bouts. High intensity, lots of decision-making.
Okay, that makes sense. And how did they measure if it worked? What were they testing?
They assess the players at the start, then at 3 months, and finally at 6 months. They use several key performance tests. There's the yo-yo intermittent recovery test, the WIRE that measures aerobic capacity, like how well you can keep going and recover during intense bursts.
Yeah, I know that one. It's tough.
It is. Then a standard 10-meter sprint for speed. For agility, they use the 5-0-5 change of direction test, specifically looking at the COD deficit. Basically, how much speed you lose when changing direction sharply.
Okay, speed, agility, endurance.
And finally, a specialized basketball technical test called the LSPT. This looks at things like dribbling speed, passing accuracy, shooting under pressure, real basketball skills.
Right, so a pretty comprehensive assessment.
It's definitely covering the key physical and technical aspects.
So the setup is clear, the groups, the training, the tests. Now, the results, this is where it's really interesting, right? What did they find after 6 months?
This is the core finding and is pretty powerful. After the full 6 months, the results showed no significant differences in any of those outcomes. Aerobic, sprint, agility, technical skill between the LBLPT comp group.
That's the low playtime group that got the extra training.
Exactly. No difference between them and the LBHPT group, the ones who had high playtime.
Wait, really? So the extra 30 minutes a week of small-sided games completely closed the gap?
That's what the data suggests. The compensatory training effectively allowed these later-born players with limited game time to perform just as well as their peers, who played almost double the minutes in actual matches.
Wow, that's huge. It kind of goes against the grain, doesn't it? The idea that more game time is always better.
It certainly challenges that assumption. It suggests the quality and type of training stimuli might be just as, if not more, important than raw match minutes, especially for bridging this specific gap.
Okay, so what about the comparison with the other low playtime group, the ones who didn't get the extra training?
Yes. That comparison really highlights the impact. The LBLPT comp group, the ones with compensatory training, performed significantly better than the LBLP TREG group, the ones without it, after 6 months. Specifically, they were better in the LSPD, that's the technical skill test, and in the CL deficit, the agility measure. The statistics showed clear, significant improvements.
So the extra training definitely made a measurable difference compared to just regular practice for those low playtime kids.
Absolutely. And conversely, looking at it the other way, the LBLP TREG group, low playtime, no extra training, they ended up significantly worse than the high playtime group, LBHPT, after 6 months. They lagged behind in the WIRE aerobic capacity, the LSPT, technical skill, and the C deficit, agility.
So without that targeted intervention, the performance gap for those later-born low playtime players really did widen over time.
Exactly. It suggests that just sticking with the status quo could lead to these players falling further behind, maybe getting discouraged, maybe even dropping out.
Okay, but what about the sprint speed? You mentioned the 10-meter sprint results were a bit different.
Right. For the 10-meter sprint, interestingly, there were no significant differences between any of the 3 groups after 6 months.
Huh. So the extra training didn't boost speed compared to the others?
Not significantly between groups, no. However, both the high playtime group, LBHPT, and the compensatory training group, LBLPT comp, showed significant improvement within their own groups over the 6 months in their sprint times.
Okay, so they got faster, but maybe not faster than the regular training group.
Well, the regular training group, LBLP TREG, showed less consistent progress in their sprint times. So while the small-sided games might not be the ultimate tool for boosting maximal sprint speed compared to, say, dedicated sprint drills, the groups getting either lots of game time or the compensatory training still saw clear improvements.
Gotcha. So overall, the compensatory training seems incredibly effective for skills, agility, and endurance, even if maximal speed needs something else.
That's a good summary of the findings, yeah.
So let's dig into the why. What's the science behind this success? Why were these specific small-sided games so effective at bridging that gap? It wasn't just more training, right? It was the type of training.
Absolutely. It really boils down to the specific demands of small-sided games. Let's break it down. For technical skills, the LSPT stuff, these games just naturally mean more touches for each player. You're constantly involved, making decisions, handling the ball under pressure. It mimics real match situations frequently. More repetitions, more focused practice in a game-like setting.
Exactly. And previous research, like systematic reviews, consistently shows that smaller formats like 2v2 and 3v3 are great for improving technical skills because of that high level of engagement.
Okay, makes sense for skills. What about agility, the change of direction?
Well, small courts, fewer players. It inherently means lots of turns, stops, starts, reacting to opponents in tight spaces. That's agility training right there. Plus, it's not just physical. It challenges players cognitively. They have to perceive things quickly, react, anticipate. That perception-reaction element is crucial for real game agility, not just running a pre-planned cone drill.
Right, it's reactive agility, not just planned changes of direction.
Precisely. And then for aerobic capacity, the Wyatt test. Small-sided games are known to be pretty demanding physiologically. Lots of short, intense bursts followed by brief recovery periods. That high-intensity intermittent work is, well, perfect for improving aerobic power in young athletes. It really taxes the system in a game-specific way. So it hits multiple targets, skills, agility, endurance, all within those short sessions.
Pretty much. Now, for the 10-meter sprint, as we discussed, the study suggests maybe small-sided games don't involve enough maximal sprinting. You sprint often, but maybe not always at your absolute top speed for long enough.
Right. You need specific sprint drills for that top-end speed.
Potentially, yes. The study authors suggest the general sprint improvement seen might have come from specific sprint training that was already part of the regular club practices for everyone. So the small-sided games complemented that, but maybe didn't drive the maximal speed improvement directly.
Okay, this all seems really practical. For coaches, maybe even parents listening, working with youth teams, this study offers a pretty clear, actionable strategy, doesn't it?
It really does. The main practical takeaway is that adding these extra small-sided game sessions for those later-born players getting less game time can be a really effective way to boost their skills, their fitness, their agility. And importantly, these are short sessions, 15 minutes, twice a week. That seems quite feasible to integrate into existing training schedules. It's an efficient way to target those potential deficits.
So not a massive overhaul of training needed.
Not necessarily. But, of course, there's a caveat. Coaches need to be mindful of the overall load. Adding extra training, even if it's short, needs careful management to avoid burnout or over-fatigue. It's about smart training, finding the right balance.
Good point. Balance is key. Now, we should also touch on limitations, right? No study is perfect.
Absolutely. And the authors are upfront about this. The sample size was relatively small, which is common in these kinds of intensive intervention studies. Also, it only included male participants, so we need to be cautious about generalizing directly to female athletes without further research.
Okay. Anything else?
The specific club context, like the fact they had 3 regular training sessions per week, might differ from other clubs, potentially affecting how well the findings apply elsewhere. And because it was a real-world study, not a perfectly controlled lab setting, there might have been some variations in the other training sessions the players received, which could have influenced the results slightly. That's always a trade-off with applied research.
Right. Real-world messiness. But still, the core findings seem pretty robust despite those limitations.
I would agree, and it definitely raises important questions for the future.
Like what? Where does the research go next?
Well, we need to know about the long-term effects. Does this boost from compensatory training last? Does it translate to better retention in the sport or even better performance down the line? And could we optimize these protocols? Maybe different frequencies or durations work better, or different types of small-sided games. How does the intensity of the actual match play they do get factor in? Lots to explore still.
Always more questions. That's science. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. To recap this deep dive, the big message seems to be that using compensatory training, specifically through these focused, small-sided games, can genuinely help later-born youth players catch up. Even if they're getting less court time in actual matches, this approach helps bridge the gap in things like technical skills, agility, and aerobic fitness. It's a practical tool for making development more equitable.
Indeed. It's a really compelling demonstration, I think, of how we can use targeted, evidence-based strategies to foster more balanced development in youth sports,
Right.
and crucially, to stop talent being overlooked just because of, an accident to birthday.
We've really only scratched the surface here today. There's a lot more detail in the actual paper, the specific drills, the stats, the deeper discussion. So if you want the full picture, we definitely recommend reading the article by Mingbang Li and colleagues in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. We've mentioned the title and details earlier. And hey, if you found this deep dive valuable, please do follow our channel, turn on those notifications. That way you won't miss our next exploration into sports science. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Perhaps the best way to spot real talent isn't just looking at who's winning now, but by actively finding ways, like this compensatory training, to cultivate the potential in everyone, especially those who might otherwise get left behind.